And now I'm going to, Max, is there anything that you want to add?
No, I'll go ahead and start checking folks in. We appreciate everyone showing up. This is a big one, so thank you.
And with that, I will hand it over to our special guest today, Kimberly, and fellow Mug Leader, to talk about the new user experience.
Yeah, let me share my screen, and I'm probably going to run into the same thing Jess did, so just bear with me and I'm also going to be looking at the other screen, so, you know, technology is hard. But chat me if you're like, I can't hear you or see you or whatever have you, and I will happily update my volume.
The Marketo demographic is that 20 something.
Hey, if you're not on mute, could you please go on mute just for all of our sakes? Thank you.
For all of our sakes. Okay, so I have had the new UI for over a month. So I do feel like I'm used to it now and it's all I've ever known. It's funny how quickly things change. So just to give you a quick agenda, I'll just talk about how you can know, just kind of cover this when you're going to get it, overall changes, tips and tricks, what's next, and then I'll, since Jess is posting these, there's a link to that post. And I try and keep that post updated the best that I can so that you guys, if we hear of any changes, we can definitely go ahead and update that post. You can just refer back to the same post. So if you're curious about when you're going to get the next gen UI, you can reach out to your CSM. The rollout plan initially was to have enterprise next year, but there are some caveats to that. If you have workspaces, stuff like that, you won't be getting it this year. So if you're curious to know what your schedule looks like, reach out to your CSM. I do know for this year, they were actually a bit ahead of schedule. So you may want to check with them if you don't want to be surprised. So the first phase of this next gen UI, it incorporates some of Adobe's design standards and look and feel. So that's why you'll see a big change in the tree and the icons and that kind of thing, because they're just trying to make them consistent across all of Adobe's brand. So if you are in any other Adobe products, you should see more similarities there. And I'll go through the icons like pretty ad nauseum, just because I feel like that was the biggest shock to most people. So overall changes, you can see that in the, I'm probably going to use the wrong terminology here, but in the iframe, in the middle or on the right, if you will, is the old Marketo. And on the left, the tree and the top nav are the new Marketo. So they are rolling this out in phases, so eventually it will all match, but this is what we start with. You'll see the new Adobe logo at the top for Marketo Engage is one of the first things you'll notice. And then obviously the tree looking a little bit different. One thing you'll notice is actually you can collapse that. I couldn't capture it in a screenshot because the little arrow disappeared every time I tried, and I'm not smart enough to figure out how to combat that. So there's a little arrow and you can actually collapse the tree all together. So if you need to see that iframe at full width, you can, which is a pretty neat trick. And I will talk about the Google Chrome plugin probably a lot today because I have it. I tried to take screenshots without it so that you guys could see what it looks like. But that will keep your width consistent from tab to tab. And most of us have 72 Marketo tabs open at any given time. So that's like a really helpful tip if you want to download that. The navigation at the top, the super ball disappeared, and it's now a constant static nav at the top, which is pretty nice. I clicked where the super ball used to be for a good week and a half, so don't feel bad if you do that. I got used to it after a while though. And then all of the other resources I'll talk about that are hidden are at the top and the right. I'll go over those a little bit as well. So the first one's global search, and actually the global search is really awesome. You can do some pretty in-depth stuff with the global search. So I gave you a little bit of an example. If I wanted to find a specific webinar and you typed in webinar, you can do that and it brings up suggestions for you. But then if you go one step further, you can filter by just about anything. So this is really, really helpful if you want to search for a specific form, template, batch campaign, only trigger campaigns, you are able to do that in the global search. So that has been really, really helpful. I actually have used it quite a few times. I was looking for a specific trigger campaign and I couldn't find it because I couldn't remember what the heck I named it, and I was able to find it with this global search. So it's actually really, really helpful. Your history is still there. It's that little clock at the top. So I use that all the time, as I'm sure most people do. And I only had 3 things for this example, but it is a list as well, just like it used to be. Your notifications, that's the little bell at the top, still there. I go over this a little bit further in the presentation, but this is a collapsed or a zoomed in browser window. So that's why you don't see the number. So if you like having the number, be sure you're zoomed out, because I like seeing how many notifications I have at all times.
That sets off the alarm.
Okay.
Oh, this one.
The help nav is at the top as well. And under help, you'll get direct access to product docs, the community, and support. So this is a really nice place to have this, because before they used to be all laid out, but it's right there. I like going straight to support from this drop down. It makes it so much easier for me to find it. And then there's your little account icon. I think this is a placeholder and we'll eventually be able to put our faces there. For a really long time, I thought I was like 50% complete with something. And I thought that was like my halfway mark, but apparently that was just a fancy icon they chose. So you will see something similar for now. And then you can just obviously click that and then find your information there. Okay, the Chrome plugin. So the Chrome plugin, if you feel like you would like it, is available. Adrian actually created this and brought back some of the things people really felt were missing in the new UI. The Marketo favicon at the top was one of the main ones. Because the community links and other links still have the Marketo one, having the Adobe A, people got really confused. So for a long time, people said it looks like Gmail, but now that Gmail looks like a rainbow, maybe that won't be the case anymore. But this plugin does change it back to the Marketo windows. Another thing it does is change the folders to purple. And then it also brings back that highlight. So that highlight was one thing people were really missing. It used to be orange in Classic. The new UI actually has a gray, and it was just not, the contrast was not as high. So that was something that Adrian took into consideration. The last thing that it does is the tree width remains static from window to window, as I was saying before. And so if you like to have it set and forget it, then this is a great plugin to get. All right, this is the fun part, icons. I apologize for the ugliness of what's to come, but I screenshot them all and put them side by side because I felt like that was helpful. There wasn't a way to see that on the product docs yet, so I made it, and it's ugly, and Adobe might hate me for doing it, but I'm not a graphic designer, so here we are. All right, so I just picked out the top ones that we would all use. Folder is pretty easy, looks like a folder. Starts to get messier further down. Archive is pretty easy to recognize. Oh yeah, by the way, Classic's on the left, new one's on the right, but I think you guys know that. Event program is pretty easy, still looks like a calendar. Smart list, where it starts to get a little confusing. So smart list is the list with the little baby filter. It's very hard to see. And your static list is list with no filter. So just keep in mind when you're looking for lists that that is the only differentiator right now. And then forms, to me it looks like a Google Doc, but there you are. And then landing pages has the landing page filled out and then the template being blank. So that's very similar. Moving on, smart campaigns have a bunch of different state icons. So invalid's pretty straightforward, and has run is pretty straightforward. Never run, that threw me off a couple times. So just so you know, there's just no green or red dot there. The recurring one, there is a little recurring recycling mark in there, a little hard to see on this screenshot. The wait step is also a little confusing because it's the same as the has run. So I don't know about that one. And scheduled to run has the clock. Email program is very similar. So if it's aborted, it's red. Completed has the check. Scheduled to run has the clock. The difference is in classic email with a head start had that little clock. It has the same little clock now as scheduled without head start. One thing I want to make pretty clear is the email thing that threw me off is the clock and the check looked the same to me. I know they're not once you stare at it for a while, but I was just visually looking for any white mark inside to show me that it was done. So for a very long time, I was confused why nothing had ran, but it really is a check mark or the clock. All right. Moving on, triggers. This also got me once or twice. The inactive trigger is just the lightning bolt with the gray. Unfortunately, I thought gray meant like done because I didn't know there were green and red. So just make sure you know that the no dot means nothing has happened. So always look out for that green or red indicator. So an active one is obviously the green, invalid red, and the campaign is requested does have the arrow inside. All right, email, the green obviously approved, yellow is draft, and then the lemon lime version, as I like to call it, is the green and yellow approved with draft. So that was one thing people were unfamiliar with since that wasn't really a thing in Classic, but it is helpful to know. Oh, and one thing to note with all the icons, you can hover over all of the state badges to see what they mean. So if you forget what email approved with draft is, you can just hover your mouse over that little circle and it will tell you what it means. So if you're struggling with the icons, feel free to hover and you should get that tooltip in Marketo. All right, and then these are the things I was saying were all available to you in that little help drop down. So that's been consolidated, but really, really helpful. And now tips and tricks. This is the fun stuff. Drag and drop. I know everyone's really sad that there's no drag and drop, but we'll be back next year. They promised. I think they'll be mad if people don't have it next year, but they promised, so it's fine. The good news is the move functionality is actually so much faster than it used to be. So originally I was pretty bummed about drag and drop, but once I got the new UI and started moving assets, it was just as fast to me as moving, which I know sounds crazy, but it's actually very, very fast. And I have a little screenshot of me doing it coming up so you can, in case you don't believe me. And the other good news, as the assets are created in the proper folder when you click on it. So if you right click on a folder and say create new smart campaign, it will be created in that folder, which is huge. Cloning, however, does not. So a little caveat there, unfortunately, if you clone something in a folder, it does not clone it to that folder. So you will have to right click and move it. So here is the video. I'm just going to show you creating a new smart campaign and having to move it. So this is me putting it in the wrong folder, but showing you how fast it is to just move it on into the right one. And you are able to select the correct folder, which makes it easy. And then if you right click and create a smart campaign in the proper folder, it actually ends up in the right place. So pretty great. I know drag and drop, we all miss it, but in the grand scheme of things, they did a great job with that functionality moving. So we'll be okay till next year. Okay, pop-ups. This one kind of got me. As you see here, I have both of my domains listed. In the screenshot at the bottom, you can see 2 Marketo domains listed. That's because they changed the URL in the new UI. So you will have to go and reapprove pop-ups. So if you're playing with stuff and nothing's opening, make sure you do that because that got me at first. And reporting. So a bunch of reporting issues have snuck up in the new UI. I have a bunch of reports that I had created, or if I had created it from a template in a program, it would call the template instead of calling the proper program. When it used to actually call the actual program where it was created. So if you are looking at your reports and you don't see any data, be sure to check the setup and make sure that the right program has been called. This error, so this guy happens a lot, unfortunately. So one way support has told me to get around it is to work in incognito mode. It seems to cut down a lot on this error. I've still seen it a couple times, but they are saying it's probably due to plugins. Unfortunately, we don't know which ones. So right now they're just saying work in incognito mode, and have said if you do find out which plugin it is, just go ahead and open a support ticket. The more people that open a ticket and give them information, the quicker they'll be able to figure this bug out. So if you see it, please do open a support ticket. Okay, notifications, like I said, when you're zoomed in, it collapses. When you're zoomed out, the number of notifications does show up. So if you're like me and you really want to see that, always make sure you're zoomed out. I pay attention to it when it gets really high, and then I go and look at it. For those that like inbox 0 type of thing, you might also want to zoom out and make sure it's always a 0. So what's next? So Adobe is actually working on potentially some better state icons due to the feedback about understanding what each of those meant. So they are actually continually listening to feedback from the community. So if you have suggestions or ideas, also color blindness and vision impairment is a big issue. So if you are struggling with that, please let them know so that they can take into consideration all of that feedback and help everybody. So like I said, the feedback forum is available at the top of your navigation. So just go ahead in there and type it in and then ask others to upvote so they can take a look. It does go directly to the product team and they will answer you. Again, I will reiterate, drag and drop will come back, so don't worry, it's coming back. And the rest of the UI will eventually match. Okay, anybody have questions or comments?
Hey, Kimberly, are you going to address one of the concerns that we saw in like day 0 regarding the addresses for the forms and what Marketo product team has told everyone?
Oh yeah, so with that hack, you mean?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
So there is a hack that a lot of people probably have put in place. We put it in place about 2 years ago. So a lot of browser privacy blockers were blocking Marketo forms because their URL in the forms was not the same URL as their branded domain. So it was using your Munchkin URL instead of your actual domain. So we put in a hack that Stanford actually wrote up, and now Marketo has pushed that live on its own. I have not seen any issues with it being live and having the hack. I don't know for sure if there will be an issue. My developer said it should be fine, but I will be keeping an eye on it in case it does break. But just so that you guys know that the form URL should now reflect your branded URL.
Hey, Kimberly, there's a question on the chat. Or do you want me to, I'll read the questions out to you if you want.
Okay, sure.
Someone's asking, or Lyola's asking, if you can please show where you enable pop-ups.
Oh, yes, let me go back to that. So this is Google Chrome. I did not check it in Firefox, I probably should have, but you go to settings, privacy and security, and it is there. You can also, if you see at the top, I just typed pop and it came up for me. So that is the quick and easy way to do it.
Lisa's got a question. When you delete an asset campaign in the program, is there a way to stay in the program and not have it go to the top of marketing activity? Does anyone know?
I didn't know it did that.
I know with the new, I mean, this was in the Sky originally, and I don't know with the new UI, there were some instances where if you did something, you search something, it would open up everything, and then now it automatically collapses it. That was supposedly in Sky. Do you know if that's in the new UI where you can easily collapse everything when everything all about it in Classic, where everything just kind of opens and pops up.
Yeah, I know in Classic we installed that treasure chest item that would collapse everything when you logged into a new window. So I'm wondering if that just came with for me in the new UI. Because I don't have that problem. That doesn't happen for us.
Oh, okay. I haven't worked in the new UI long enough to know if that still happens.
Yeah.
Let's see. Rusty says, okay, do they move?
I'm working on getting the answer for y'all.
Oh, thank you.
Bacha. It's so nice at Bacha.
Sorry.
Oh, I did have a question either for Bacha or for Kimberly. For trigger campaigns in the Classic, if it was a request campaign and a trigger at the same time, it would be yellow and it would have the little request green thing. In the new UI, if the trigger campaign is on and it is a request, is there some way to differentiate, like, because there's no yellow, like the light bulb being on, is it going to look the same? The campaign is requested with the green arrow. Like, how will I know that it's also on based on the icon? Does my question make sense?
Yeah, I think I actually just made one yesterday. I think that if it's not on, nothing shows up. It'll just be inactive.
Even though it's a request campaign versus in Classic, at least had the green arrow.
Right. Yeah, because when you start with it, it starts as a light bulb. As soon as you drag in the trigger, it changes it to flash, lightning. And then I think maybe I didn't drag it. No, I dragged it in. I don't think I saw the state change with just the campaign is requested.
Okay, there's some feedback for you, Bacha, pretty please.
I'm wondering if it would be helpful, besides having an icon glossary, for the state badges, maybe some kind of legend that shows you like the sequence or the flow, the workflow of how the state badges change or something like that, the progression. Maybe that might help.
It might, because definitely the inactive one got me. Like I was saying, like to me, like a filled in flash was the same as a lit light bulb for some reason. So yeah, that might be helpful.
Yeah, it's something that'll show the progression so you know what to expect after what, something like that. I do want to, and kind of generally speaking, respond to a couple of things to make sure everyone's updated. So as Kimberly was saying, our UX team is currently testing with users several options. It's not just the state badges that they're testing new versions of, but it's also the icons themselves. So the challenge we ran into is that the original set of icons and state badges, when they were validated with users, and a lot of validation was done, the mistake that was made is they were tested in isolation. So if you look at the icons individually, they seem intuitive, but then when you put them into a tree in context, that's when people start having problems with distinguishing things, right? Given that they're all gray and flat because of the Adobe color scheme. And also the size is a little bit too small for a lot of people. So they're looking at increasing the pixel size for the individual icons, also looking at the state badges, and then also playing around with different options for the overlay, like whether they should be next to each other, on top of each other, maybe staggered more than they are right now, all kinds of different things. So they're trying out those things. And then once they're done with their testing and they finalize their options, we're going to move forward and implement those changes. So hopefully that'll improve the iconography. Drag and drop, we're shooting for Q1. Obviously, I can't commit a date in advance, but that's what we're targeting right now. And it's actively being worked on as we speak. This first iteration of drag and drop will only be within the tree. And the reason we're not going to do between frames from right side and left side, like for add to engagement program, nurture streams, for example, is because we need the right side to be new experience for that to work. So once engagement program is in new UX in the future with that toggle switch in the future phase, that's when that will be restored, dragging from left side to right side and backwards as well, like when Design Studio images and files are in UX. So I just want to make sure everybody's clear on that.
Thanks, Bacha.
Yeah, no problem.
Okay, let's see. There's a question from Curtis. Is there any function updates with this? When we clone a program, often the newly cloned program won't display until you do an F5 refresh, and often it wouldn't make the clone program highlighted and remain on the old program.
Yeah, I actually just ran into that for the first time today myself. So I was wondering the same
Yeah,
thing.
we have a couple of issues with like when you do something, unless you refresh, something doesn't get reflected. So there are several problems like that that we're looking at to improve on. But we do recognize there's some issues like that where something doesn't reflect until you refresh. So we're looking into those things. And also what I'm getting back, by the way, our head of QE, quality engineering, is on this call right now. It's just so you all know. So if you don't believe we're listening, I have QE sitting here listening to all of you. Okay. And engineering as well. We have an engineering lead here too. So saying that there might be a bug related to the thing where if you delete, it takes you back to the top level. So they're filing a bug for that to see, that was getting to the previous question. So we're looking into that.
Since thank you guys so much for coming and joining on this call. We really appreciate the fact that you are listening. And I know that Kimberly showed the give feedback, the blue button, and that's what I've been telling all the folks is that this is a community and a joint effort. That's why we're doing this call today, to educate the users in this community. But also, if you do find something, put it into the blue feedback button, because they are actually reading it, right, Bacha? You're the one who's reading it. I see you responding to those there as well, that there are people who are actually paying attention and as well as reading into that.
No, thank you for mentioning that, Jessica. And I just want to say make one point about that. If you run into a bug, please log a support case. If it isn't a support case, it doesn't exist, right, for engineering. So we need to make sure bugs are logged, support cases are filed, and all the process is followed. And when something is an escalation, people are on top of it immediately. I know because I watch all the Slack messages. And then the second thing is, when you have feedback, whether it's positive feedback, hey, this is great, I like this specific aspect of the new UX, or if it's a complaint about something that you're having an issue with, right, whether it's icons or functionality or whatever, please, it doesn't take long. It just takes a minute to do, because you only have to enter your email address and that's it. You don't have to set up an account or anything like that. Click on the give feedback button. That's how we're capturing UX feedback. If you post it on LinkedIn or Twitter or whatever, we'll eventually read it, but that's not the same as submitting the feedback on the give feedback thing, because then it actually goes into our system. And some of those things actually get converted into Jira enhancement requests through our workflow. So just so you know, like, something is actually happening with all that feedback. So it would be really great if you could all put it in there, because then it's all in one place for us to analyze.
So things that are like the bug that you found, Kimberly, things like that, those need to go in support cases. Is that right, Bacha? Okay. Things like
anything else, right? It's just treated like any other product bug. But if it's an idea, if it's a feedback on like, hey, this doesn't look good, or this is not visually clear or distinguishable, or things like that, right? Or, hey, this move action is giving me problems because something is not intuitive, whatever. Those are the kinds of things we want in the feedback button. But not bugs. Great. Bugs should be in support cases just like any other bug. Yeah.
Great, thanks. Because a lot of times, something happens, I just kind of ignore it and like, oh, hopefully someone else will fix it. But I really like, I think submitting that case so that you guys can see it, so you guys have visibility, so everyone on this call can participate, can play an active role in making, helping make the new experience better.
Right, because when you run into these like error messages and stuff, what we've seen is when we've investigated those, when they've been filed, some cases it has to do with that particular customer's data or instance. And in other cases, it's a genuine product bug. And so we need to obviously investigate each case to determine whether it's a product bug or if it's something else going on. So, that's why, yeah, please file those cases. We'll look at every single one.
Great. We have a question from Denise on what's the relationship between this new UI and Sky? And are they still working on Sky? I mean, Kimberly and I have, we've been communicating with you guys for a long time in the back end. We, I think most people just don't know.
Yeah, I think this is a good one for me to answer. So, so what happened was with Sky, Sky was rolled out with all good intentions, and there were a couple of challenges with it. Number one, what people don't realize is that Sky wasn't a reskinning. It wasn't updating style sheets. It's actually rebuilding everything Marketo has ever built for years and years and years in a new tech stack on the front end. And as a result, it was taking a long time to fill in all the gaps in functionality to achieve full parity with Classic, and then also introduce all the enhancements that people like about Sky, right? So people weren't adopting it because they would start out trying out Sky, and then they would run into something that was missing, and then they would go back to Classic, and that was the end of it. They would never go back to Sky. So we had very, very low adoption, especially since it was a choice. It wasn't forced down people's throats. So what we decided is we regrouped, we looked at all the feedback we got from Marketo users, and we decided to change the strategy. What we did was we said, okay, we're gonna have to push everybody onto a new tree and global navigation up front, because that's the foundation that lays the groundwork, so that the right frame can now be turned into new experience over time. And that way, as we turn on new features on the right side with a toggle switch, number one, you will be able to opt into whether or not to try the new UX on a feature by feature, asset type by asset type basis. Number two, you don't have to worry about whether something is there yet or not, right? Like you did in Sky. If it's there in new UX, you'll see the toggle switch. If you opt into it, you will always be taken to new UX. If it doesn't exist in new UX yet, right, you will always be taken to whatever's there, which is the classic version. And then over time, as everything gets switched over to new UX, then all of Marketo Engage is going to turn into new UX, and we're going to remove all the toggle switches, and everyone's going to have a wonderful new user experience. That's what we changed the strategy to. What is the relationship with Sky? Well, everything in the new UX you see there, underlying it is the same React.js based tech stack that Sky is built in. The difference is that everything that we're going to release moving forward is not going to look like the Sky look and feel. It's not going to have the purples and stuff. It's going to have to look like Adobe. Now, that said, I know that a lot of people have issues with the, I say embrace the grayness, but I know that a lot of people have issues with it. I want to point out a couple of things. Number one, Adobe's number one priority with the look and feel and with everything, all the UI components, is accessibility. So WCAG 2.1 compliance is number one. But also, what works for Adobe for some applications may not necessarily work for Marketo Engage, right? So one thing we've learned from this experience, our user experience team is now pushing back on something that doesn't make sense. So if there's a standard out there and it doesn't quite meet the needs of our users in Marketo Engage, for example, maybe we need a little bit of color, maybe we need some background, it can't just be bland, just things like that, and also more importantly, functionally, then we're gonna say, hey, Adobe, I know this is our company standard, but we need something slightly different for Marketo, and we're going to try to get that compromise, right, in between what Adobe needs and what Marketo Engage specifically as a product needs, right? So that's the relationship. So you're never going to see the Sky colors again moving forward, but you're going to see Sky underneath it all. The plumbing is all going to be like what we used to call Sky.
Awesome, thank you. We'll let Kimberly keep going. Right, you have more slides, right, Kimberly? Or
no, I was just, I highlighted this one so we could see the feedback button.
Oh, okay. Oh, perfect. Oh, perfect. Yes, the blue feedback button. I know, Bacha, you took away a purple, and it's like the wrong group of people to take purple away from.
I know, we all bleed purple. Guess what I'm wearing right now? My hoodie is a Marketo hoodie and stuff. But right, the thing is, we're Adobe now, and we love red and whatever the other colors are. But hey, that's why you have the Chrome plugin. Add purple back into your lives. So,
right, you can't keep us down.
No, no, and nor do I intend to. So yeah, go for it. I love purple.
Okay, so Chris, so you don't have any more slides, Kimberly? I'm just going to keep going with the questions.
Questions are good, yeah.
Yeah, no, these questions are great. Keep them coming. And so glad, so excited that, you know, we have the people that we do as well. Okay, so if my company site feeds into Marketo using the Marketo URL, app-marketo, and a blank Marketo form, do you know if the URL will redirect until I can put a change on my site?
Yeah. So, and again, I'm not the expert in every technical detail, but my understanding, and I'll check with my PM, Steven Vanderberg, who some of you may know.
Hey,
on
I just appeared.
Hey,
Hello.
Steven,
Hey, you summoned me.
here. Yay. See, I just think and they show up. So yeah, maybe you can answer this question. I think I know the answer, but you're the expert.
The old URL is redirecting to the location of new UX, right? Yep, that works.
Awesome. Okay.
And the specific example here is the same thing, right? I mean, there's nothing different here in this specific case. My company site feeds into Marketo using the app.-marketo and the blank Marketo form. Do you know if the URL, I mean, that should be the same, right? I mean,
right.
Nothing special about that case. Okay, great. There's another one similar. I might be wrong, but is the Marketo ID now in the URL, but not the pod now?
That's correct. It's so the pod is not in the URL anymore. However, we are going to be adding in the My Account section a little panel that will show your pod, your Munchkin, and your landing page prefix. So you don't have to hunt around different parts of admin to look for it when you're like looking at the status page or contacting the support. So that is coming. We're targeting January for that.
Thank you, Stephen.
Awesome. This is your chance, guys, to ask all your Marketo questions, because we've got the Adobe folks on here as well. So here's your chance. You have their ear. Literally.
Yeah. Does this address responsiveness? It is a responsive UI to use on lower res screen, like laptop or tablet. Yeah.
I think, Bacha, there was one question about SEO. How do I access SEO and all those?
Oh, yeah. So anything that is not one of the links across the top, global navigation. So if you look at Kimberly's screenshot here, you see that My Marketo, marketing activities, design studio, database analytics, admin, basically the core functional areas are across the top. And so the standard for Adobe Experience Cloud is that if it's not one of the core areas that people most frequently access, then everything else is accessible from the My Marketo page, which you're looking at right now. So yeah, everything else, including actually, if you still want to use Sky, for example, if you use predictive audiences or event cap, registration caps and things like that, for now, you still have to go to Sky to use those features. And that's also a tile here. Does that answer the question?
Yeah, that was the question from someone.
Okay, cool. Rusty, you were saying there's also a toggle for the nurture stream frame. Can you explain what you're talking about there? Are you talking about the action to add content, or what were you talking about?
Yeah, I was just noticing in the UI that when you go, you've got the new tree on one side, but if you go into like the new nurture campaigns, there's an option to show like your individual streams in kind of what the new UI look and feel is going to be like. But there was a toggle button that lets you toggle it back to kind of make it look like the kind of engagement campaigns that we're all kind of used to seeing from stream to stream. So
that is not in this version.
Phased rollout?
Yeah, okay. That's not in this version. So this version, this phase is strictly the tree, the global nav, and global search, and several other things, but miscellaneous things. But the right frame, the main canvas or right canvas, depending on who refers to it, that is still completely classic. What you saw was in a presentation that I recorded where we were showing what the future is going to look like. So once you get this foundation on the right side, engagement program being an example, you're going to get a toggle switch whenever new experience is released. And that means classic will be your default. When you slide the toggle switch slider, it will switch it to the new experience and preserve your context, save all your changes. And then you could always switch back if you're not ready to adopt the new UX. If you like it, you keep the slider on, and then you will always be taken to engagement programs and new UX moving forward from there. So that was just an example of what you're going to see in the future.
Okay, I gotcha. Thank you for the clarification.
That's 2021 is when we start rolling that out.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
Awesome. All right. Universal ID for multiple instances. Normally that would be in the top left-ish area. Where would that drop down appear now in navigation to switch instances?
So that's now in the top right, immediately to the right of the give feedback button. I think it's missing from this screenshot that's on the page, but there will be a little, it should be some text to say the name of the subscription you're currently in. And when you click on that, it'll give you the list of the other subscriptions that you can switch into.
Great. Brittany, does that answer your question?
Yes, it does. Thank you.
Great. Karen's asking about drag and drop. Drag and drop is returning next year. Is there a timeline? Where did Bacha go? Did you disappear, Bacha? Did you leave us?
I still see him on the camera. I think he's just muted.
I'm here. Yeah, no, I'm here. I was just opening up an instance because I figured if there's something we need to show. Do you mind if I share my screen?
Yeah, go ahead. Go for it.
And I have to apologize. I'm on like ultra UHD HD screen, which means everything looks tiny, but share screen. Yeah, so everyone can see Marketo Engage here.
I need glasses to see your screen.
I know. I'm sorry. Let me just scale this. Change the scale here.
I see some
hold
squiggles.
on just a sec. I know you could zoom in on Zoom, but this is probably going to be better. Yeah. Okay, here we go. So let's go to full screen. There we go. So let's see. Stephen, why don't you describe the answer to the question, the previous question?
Yeah, so immediately to the right of the give feedback button, Bacha, you won't have a
there's give feedback. Here it is, right here.
Yeah, you probably won't have a drop down on this subscription because I think this
because I only have a single subscription here.
Yeah,
right?
but it'll be there. You would click on that, and your other subscriptions would be in the list.
Is that where the new account string is now instead of in the top left? That is going to be.
Yeah. So if you were to rename this to something a little more friendly, it would update there.
Awesome. Great. Karen had a question around drag and drop. We've heard that drag and drop is returning next year. Is there a timeline?
Yeah. So Q1 is what we're targeting right now. I can't give any specific dates, but we're pushing as hard as we can. Yeah, that's all I can say. But Q1 is our target.
And are there any other questions? Anyone want to throw them in the chat? Okay, so while people are still thinking if they're putting questions in there, is there anything that we can do, Bacha, to help you as you guys are doing your, releases, your rollout? Do you need, Kimberly and I have done a lot of feedback sessions, testing. What can we do to help you? Help us give us a better, give us a better product.
Yeah, no, certainly all that feedback. Yeah, it's helpful very much. And, the more specific people are with their feedback, the more helpful it is, right? So, as an example, if somebody says, I hate this, that's not actionable feedback. But if you say that, I can't tell the difference between this state and that state, or my asset types are getting all confused because the icons are too small, or they're the same color, so it's hard to tell them apart. That is something we can take action on, right? That's something we can do something about. So I would say the more specific the feedback is, the better. Anytime you give feedback, we want to hear the good and the bad directly, right? So, so that's really important to us. The other thing is that, you also have to, like, if you could just, maybe when you're talking to others, like your clients or other users and such, a lot of people think that we didn't go through any usability studies or any user feedback to develop all of this. And nothing can be farther from the truth, right? So we surveyed like 3,000 users to get feedback on this stuff. We had focus groups. We went to mugs physically to do feedback sessions and all kinds of stuff. So, but like I said, some of the challenges are maybe the way we got feedback on the icons, for example, right? Like not putting it in context, lesson learned. The other thing that people have to understand is that sometimes when you try to get feedback in advance, you do your due diligence, you do the best you can, but you can't predict what it's going to be like when thousands of users are on the system for real and using it day in and day out, right? It's very different from a usability study. And that's why when people say, hey, why didn't I have a choice? Roll me back. The reason is that if we don't push forward, we're never going to improve the product, right? By forcing people to use this, all the bad things come out. Right? All the problems come out. And when they get flushed out, that's when we can take action and fix it. So it's short-term pain for long-term gain. So as long as, we can keep educating our users to give us specific feedback, understand that we did our best, we didn't just do this willy-nilly, we listened to our users, but then we're going to continue listening to our users and keep working on fixing this and improving this moving forward. That's basically going to help us out.
Awesome. Kimberly, did you want to, was there anything that you also wanted to add, or I didn't know if you had a summary slide or a conclusion or anything like that. I think we just kind of went into questions. So.
There's one more question. Are you, Marketo, aware of a problem where the UI suddenly closed to a crawl? I've not heard that specifically. Anyone on the call, engineering, QE, PM, heard of this particular problem? Is there a case for this or anything like that?
I have not. It'd be something that we want to get customer support to take a look at.
It happened to me yesterday. I saw feedback about it in the feedback section. Okay, so I've not read that yet. Let's look into that one. We'll take a note to look into that. All right, cool. Sorry to interrupt, Kimberly.
Yeah. Oh, no, you're good. I would rather you guys answer these questions than me talk. So thank you for that. I don't have anything additional other than just to echo what they've been saying. And I'm happy to help put all of your feedback together if you don't know where to put it. If you want to comment on the blog posts in the community, that's fine too. I want to help them as much as we can and be constructive in our feedback so that they can give us something that we can all use.
Yeah, I think someone had mentioned in the chat about like the guide with the icons or something. I know Bacha, you talked about that too, and I think that's one of the challenges is when I started using the new UI, it was just like a mind flip for the icons. Like it's really hard to just go through like just trying to understand the nurtures. Like, is it on? Is it not? I almost like printed out my own little cheat sheet guide and Kimberly's translation table. So I think like if we could take some of your slides and put it into like a 1-page PDF and put it out in the community, that would be really helpful. And then anything Bacha that you guys are producing, like you said, like a state change with the icons, we'll happily push it out to the community as well. So yeah. Anything else from?
The feedback I'll take back is number one, my suggestion I think might be helpful. So I'll propose that to our doc lead. The other thing is, it sounds like the icon glossary that's been produced so far doesn't go far enough. And so we'll look at ways and we'll ask you for feedback on how to improve the icon glossary so it's more helpful.
Yeah, I would say I kept getting confused because I had already forgotten what it was like in Classic. Mm-hmm. But my brain was looking for what that state was in Classic, and I had nothing to compare it to. So the comparison table really might help. Just don't show them the ugly one I made.
Right, the comparison table, not just a definition of what an icon stands for, but actual help with the transition.
Yeah.
Which we might want to put in as like a separate addendum just for existing users, because for new customers, it doesn't make any sense. It'll just be confusing. So, okay, so point noted.
Thank you.
There were a few more icons which you all said were missing or not clear. Can we get those specific informations?
Yeah, I can share, I'll throw it in the chat here. The blog post that I put together has a link to the icons that they've already put together, and it lists all of them. I only called out a specific few in here, so let me throw that in the chat right now.
Yeah, I almost took the document that was in docs.marketo.com and like cut them out so that it would fit on a page, and then like glued it to my desk. Yeah.
Well, the thing we can always count on is Marketing Nation is the most resourceful customer base in the universe. So if we, don't do something, we know that you'll all take care of it. So
Right? Like we'll stick that purple back in.
right, exactly. We don't have to worry about that. Yeah.
I was pretty impressed how fast that came out. So anyway, great. Yeah, thank you, Kimberly. I know Kimberly's done a lot, putting together that blog post. I know a couple of the other champions, Brooke and Christina, also have worked to put together the guide for everyone. Like I said, Bacha, we're just here doing stuff for you guys. With we'll post this recording, and you'll also get the slides. I think this is definitely one of the ones where you're going to want to share this with your colleagues and your other friends that are Marketo users, because it's going to contain some documents where it will be useful when everyone gets switched over to the new UI. Thank you, Adobe. Thank you, Bacha and friends, and Stephen, and the engineers for joining us today. Now that we're all virtual, you can come all the time. Is there anything else from anyone that we can help you with? This is also a place where if you have support case issues where we can help you escalate, or if you're getting unresponsive, reps or CSM or anything, Kimberly and I and Max are able to help you. I mean, actually, Bacha can help you more than me. But thank you guys so much for coming, and we will see you guys next time.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.
Thanks, Kimberly.
Everyone.
That was really helpful. That was great.
Thank you. I'm glad you guys joined. That was
Thank you all.
Yeah. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you, Dallas Mug. So nice to meet you guys.